Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can create this elevator system here. See, the player comes by, the door opens up, closes behind the player, and this widget pops up and the player is allowed to select a floor. So go up to the third floor, and as you can see, when we get to the third floor, the door opens up. The player is now on the third floor here, and he can return to any floor that he wants. Again, the same way, we'll go back in and we will hit one of these buttons. We'll go back to the ground floor, and you can see the widget will update itself and tell you what floor we're on, and then it just opens up. And I will be showing you guys how you can create this functionality yourselves. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do, right click here, we're going to need to create a widget, and we'll call this elevator widget. We'll open up our widget here. We don't need this to fill the screen, we'll just make it a custom size, say about 325 by 100. And what I'm going to do in here is put an overlay in. I'm going to make this the same size as this width and height that we have here, so 325 by 100. And then I'm going to add a vertical box to the overlay, and inside the vertical box we will have a couple horizontal boxes. We'll have these fill, and again, you guys can create whatever widget you would like for your elevator. It doesn't really matter. This is just the one that I did, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And inside this horizontal box we're going to put a text box. We'll have this fill, and this is just going to be the display that we have. Give it a font of like 18. Floor display, and we'll make this a variable, and the default will just be please select a floor. And then in the bottom horizontal box we're going to add a bunch of buttons for as many floors as you guys want to have. So for this we'll just put one button in here. I'm going to give this a padding. We'll say it can fill. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to copy this, Control V, Control V, so we'll just have 3 buttons. And on top of each button we'll put a text. And this will just say G, like this, 18. And this one we can say 1. And this will be 2. So I'll make 2 floors that we'll have here, and I guess just so we can see these a little better, I'll give them a color. The other thing we'll put in here on the overlay is a border. And we will have that border fill. Why does it not want to go there? Oh well, no worries. And we will just turn the alpha down here on the brush. Tint, I believe, will do it. Just pick something readable. So hit compile and save here. And then we'll go into our graph. And what we're going to do is for each button, we're going to need an on-clicked event. We can come over here and say on-clicked, on-clicked, and on-clicked. And for this floor display, we're going to create a function. I'll just say update floor text. And we'll just grab our floor display out here. Say set text. And we'll give this an input. New floor. And we'll make this a text. And we can just plug that in like that. Hit compile and save. Then I'm going to minimize this for a second. We're going to right click in here, create a blueprint class actor. And we'll call this elevator BP, new elevator. And I just need to create that so we can have a reference to it in our elevator widget. So now we can create a variable here and call this elevator reference. And we'll make this of type new elevator object reference. And we're going to need another variable called desired floor. And this will be an integer. And then we can take this reference out. And once we script some functionality in the elevator, we'll be able to use this. You guys will see what we'll do with it later. So we'll just hit compile and save this for now. And then we will go into our elevator here. And this is just going to be a really quick makeshift elevator that I'm going to create. If you guys have a nicer mesh or something, obviously you can stick that in right here. So I'm just going to create this thing really quick. You guys feel free to add your own meshes or anything that you want here. The important part is just having a floor, and then we will have a door. Once we're done with that, we're going to make sure everything is parented to the elevator mesh here. And then we're going to add some collision overlap boxes here. Box collision. And we're going to need 3 of these. One we'll put right in the center. Like this. 1. Like that. So you want it to take up the whole space within the elevator. And we will call this entry detection. And we can copy this and paste. And we will rename this outer detection. And we will slide that out here. And we can make this a little bit thinner. 2. And then we can copy this and paste, and the final one that we'll have, we'll rename floor detection. Now this one we want to be pretty thin, so that way we know the elevator will stop at the correct place. So you want to try and line this one up as best you can with the base of your elevator, like that. And then we will take all three of these and parent them to the elevator mesh. So hit compile and save. The last thing we're going to do is add a widget. And for this one, we'll look over here to widget class and we'll get elevator widget. We want to make sure the draw size is the same, 325 by 100, which might actually be too big for this. Oh, I think I know why. Unparent this, because this was messed up. There we go. And now we'll parent it back. So now it's looking better. So now that we have our widget here, we can just place our widget on the back wall. And there you have it. So we'll hit compile and save there. And then we're going to go into our event graph here and we're going to script some logic for this elevator. So the first thing off of begin play, we will get our widget here, get user widget object, and we will cast this to elevator widget. And this will give us a reference to the widget that's attached to this elevator here. So we can right click and promote this to a variable. Let's say widget ref. And then we're going to want to set the visibility. And we'll just make this hidden. Alright. Then we're going to create a custom event. Call this open close door. And we're going to need to create a few variables here. So the first variable that we're going to need to make is called current floor. And this will be an integer. Then we're going to need to make a door start position. And this will be a vector. And then we're going to create elevator start position. This will also be a vector. Then we're going to need a couple booleans. Elevator active. We will need door active. And this will just keep the player from being able to operate the elevator when the door is up, or for them to be able to change their floor while the elevator is currently moving. And we're going to need one that says elevator direction, and this will be a float. And finally, we need one that will be messages, and this will be a text. So we can hit compile on all of that. Elevator active, so these should be false to start with. And now what we're going to do is off of this open closed door, we're going to set our door active. So we'll hold Alt. We're going to check this box to have door active. We'll grab our door mesh here. And then what we're going to want to do is use a timeline to move the door up and down. So we'll drag out of here. We're going to want to set this door start position, so we'll hold Alt. And we'll just say get world location. We'll plug that into here. And then we will have a timeline, and this will say move door. We'll have it play from start. Now if we double click on this timeline, we're going to create a vector track here. And we'll have this be 5 seconds long, and this will be raise or lower door. We don't need to move in the X or the Y direction, so we'll lock those. We're only going to move on the Z direction. So we'll right click and add a key. So we'll say 0, 0. And right click, add another one. And it'll take 2 seconds, and then we're going to want the value to go up to 300. And then we'll right click again, and we'll say at time 3 it'll still be at 300. And then we'll right click one more time and say at time 5 it'll go back to 0. So you should have a track that looks similar to this. So it's going to be flat at the top for a second, and it's going to take 2 seconds to go from 0 to 2 up to 300, and 2 seconds to go back from 300 down to 0. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to then set the location of our door. So we'll have this update the door's location. So say set world location. And then we're going to take our door position here, and we're going to add a vector. And we're going to add this value here. And that'll be our new location. And then when it's finished, we'll say door active, we'll hold Alt, and we'll set this. So now be inactive. Hit compile and save. The next thing we're going to want to do is create another custom event. And this is going to move the elevator. And we're going to need a couple branch nodes, so we can just hold B. And we're going to want to check 2 things first. Hook them both up from here, from the false to the other branch node. First thing we're going to check is make sure the door is not active. And then we're going to want to make sure the elevator isn't active. And we're going to give this one input. This will be desired floor, and we'll make this an integer. And then we're going to take this and compare. So if the door is not active and the elevator is not active, we'll be able to move forward. So we'll hook up the false here. And what we're going to compare it to is our current floor here. Now if it's greater than our current floor, we're going to set our elevator direction. So we'll hold Alt, Control C, Control V. And if our desired floor is greater than the current floor, we're going to set this to 1. And if that's not true, we'll set this to -1. And then we're going to set our elevator active to true. And off of this equal, we're going to get our elevator widget here. to say update floor text. And what we want to update it to will be this message here. And this will say currently on selected floor. So if our current floor equals our desired floor, we're going to have that error message come up, and then we will call open and close our door. That way we can get back out of our elevator. We will have a delay, about a second, and then we'll set this message back, Control-C, Control-V. And we'll hook the target up here. And this will just say, please select a floor. Now, from our elevator active, we're going to also have another timeline, but this one's going to move the elevator. So we're going to set our elevator start position. And from this, we're going to grab our elevator mesh, and we can say get world location, and we will set this. From here we'll have another timeline, and this will be move elevator. Okay, and we're going to need to create another custom event here, and we'll call this stop elevator. And we're going to set our current floor to the desired floor back here. And then we're going to set our elevator to be inactive. And then we will open our door. And this will go up here and we'll stop our elevator. Now we're going to take our elevator mesh here and we're going to do the same thing, set world location. We'll have this update here. But instead of setting our world location to something, to this vector that we did for our door, what we're actually going to do is we're going to have this lerp between two places. So we'll say lerp vector here, and we'll plug this into the world location. I'm going to double click on this and we'll create a float track. Move the elevator, and we'll leave this at 5. So right click and say 0, 0. And the last one we want to be 5 and 1. And we can plug this into the alpha. So we're going to take the start position, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get our elevator direction. And we're going to multiply vector by a float, and we'll plug that into here. And this is kind of like a makeshift way to get your elevator to run at a certain speed. I'm just going to put in 3000 for now. When we put our floors into the world, you should check to see what the height of the highest floor is and make sure this Z value is above that, and that way your elevator will be able to reach the top floor. And then based on changing this value to be, 5,000 or 6,000 above the top floor or just right at the top floor, and how long this timeline is going to run for will determine the speed of your elevator. So it's a little bit of a roundabout way to do that, but I didn't feel like figuring out a better way to do that right now. This should get you guys pretty close to having a decent working elevator that you can play around with. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to need to start creating all these overlap events. So for our outer detection, I'm going to drop down here and say on component begin overlap, and we're going to want to cast to third person. And if it is our third person, we're going to have a branch, and we'll check and see if our door is active, and if it's not, we will open and close our door. Then we're going to need to get the entry, again on component begin overlap, and we will cast to third person. And then we're going to want to set the visibility of our elevator widget. So we'll grab our widget here, say set visibility, and we want it to become visible now. And then we'll take this one on end overlap for our entry detection. So when the player leaves the elevator, Control C, Control V, we will set our elevator widget back to be hidden. This way they can't interact with it unless they're in the elevator. Control C here, Control V, and we'll hook that up like this. The last thing we're going to need to do is the floor detection. Again, on component begin overlap. And here we're going to need to cast to our floor meshes. So let's minimize here. We'll right click, create a blueprint, actor, floor, mesh. And we'll double click here, and we'll just add a cube. We'll call this our floor. Make this 0.1 and make it a little bit bigger. And you can put whatever material you want on here. Just leave that. We'll compile this. And one thing that we're going to need in our floor, we're going to need one variable. And we'll call this floor level. We'll make it an integer, and you want this to be instance editable. Right, compile and save. And now we can go back into our elevator, and we can then take this other actor and say cast to floor. We'll get our floor mesh, and once we have that, we'll say get floor level. And we're going to want to compare this. So we'll say equal integer. And the integer we're going to want to compare it to is going to be from our elevator widget here. Say get desired floor. And we'll check and see if these two are equal. So we'll hit B. We'll get a branch node here. And what we're going to want to do from our elevator widget, be able to say update floor text. And we'll take our floor level here. And we'll say, oh, can't do that. Say append. And we'll just make a string here, and we'll convert this into a text. And for A, we'll just say floor. And then our floor level will go right here into the B. Now from the branch, if this is true, we're going to call stop on our elevator. We'll delay about a second. And then we're going to want to update our text from the elevator widget here. So Control C, Control V, and we'll just have this say, please select a floor. Hit compile and save. And I believe that's all we need to do here. So now if we go into our world, we can drag in our elevator. Just rotate this around. Just have it face the player. And then I'm just going to drag in our floor mesh. And you want to make sure your floor mesh is lined up with your elevator, especially this box right here, because that's going to be the overlap for the floor. So since we have 3 floors, we have a ground floor, we'll hit Control C, Control V, and we'll put our first floor here, Control C, Control V, and we'll make a 3rd floor up here. Now on each one of these, you see we have the floor level, so we want to change this to be 2, 1, and we'll leave this at 0. That'll be our ground floor. Now, when I was telling you guys about the timeline and making sure that your elevator, here if we double click, I'll show you again, that this value here is higher than your highest floor. So our ground floor is at 1010 here, and our top floor is at 2290, so that's less than 3000 difference, so our elevator will go between all of these floors for sure. That's the number that I was talking about. So now if we save, if we hit play, we can walk over here to our other elevator, see our door goes up, we enter in, our widget pops up, and we'll take ourselves to the 2nd floor. And I forgot to do one thing. If we go into our elevator here on this widget, so if we select the widget and you scroll down, you see interaction, receive hardware. If you want to use this with a mouse click, you're going to have to select this, make it true. If not, if you guys want to use the keyboard or things like that, you're going to have to add a widget interaction component. So we'll just hit compile and save. Okay, I completely forgot to do the elevator widget functionality. Alright, so what we're going to need to do in here, in our elevator widget, now that we have our elevator reference, because remember I told you guys to create this thing, so now this is going to reference our new elevator here. So we can drag out of here and say move elevator. And now we're going to drag out this, hold Alt, we'll need Control C, Control V, we'll need 3 of them, 1 for each of these floors. Oops. And we'll also need branch nodes, 3 branch nodes. And we'll hook the false up to these. And we'll hook all of these here into the move elevator. And we'll drag out this desired floor here, and we'll feed that into the move elevator. And from our elevator reference, we're going to say get elevator active. And we want to make sure that our elevator isn't active. And now we should be good to go. Hit save, minimize, we hit play. Hopefully our lovely little elevator will work. Just still does not want to work. Okay, my bad guys. Couple things that I forgot to do. So first, in the designer, when I added this border and it was showing up here at the bottom, it was actually covering up the buttons. So you need to make sure in the overlay the border is first and then the vertical box. That way this gets drawn first and the vertical box goes on top of it, so the buttons, you can interact with them. And the last thing I forgot to do right here is we're going to have to say set elevator reference. And this we're just going to do, so this is in the new elevator blueprint off of begin play. We need to set that reference. We'll just drag out and say self. We'll hit compile and save. And now everything should work as expected. Let's wait for our door to close. We'll hit 2. And it's not moving. So let's see what was going on there. This needs to be added to this here and plug that into B. So hit compile and save. Hit play. And now for the nth time, this should probably work. We'll hit 2. And there we go. Now we're on level 2. And if we hit level 1, we go to level 1 here. And we can get back into our elevator and go down to the ground floor. Alright guys, I hope you thought that was helpful, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more tutorials. Alright, see you guys later.